Today is tax day. It is also, befittingly, National Glazed Ham Day. And I want to suggest those two observances have more in common than anyone planned, because a significant percentage of the population wakes up today feeling like their ham is being glazed, slowly, thoroughly, and without their full consent. I'm Raphael St. James. At H2P Collective, we work with people and teams to use their problems as the doorway to their goals. We have a 5-step framework called synovial space that takes a systems thinking, multi-dimensional approach to attaining goals. Tax day is the one day in the year that the system forces you to look at the gap between what you intended and what you actually did. Not what you planned to earn, what you earned. Not what you meant to invest, what you invested. The IRS doesn't audit your intentions, it audits your actions. The gap between what you hoped for and what you produced is completely irrelevant to the return. The numbers are what they are, and for one day a year, usually under mild to moderate duress, most people look at those numbers honestly. They see the gap, they feel it, they make a mental note to address it differently next year. And then the filing is done and the audit closes and the financial dimension goes back to running on autopilot until the same system forces the same reckoning 12 months from now. What if you ran that audit across every dimension of your life? Not once a year when an external system forces it, but consistently enough that the gap between intention and actual behavior never gets large enough to surprise you. Not just the finances, the physical dimension, the relational one, the professional, the emotional, the purpose. Every one of those dimensions has its own version of the tax return, and every one of them accumulates a gap when the audit doesn't happen. Silently, compounding, not dramatically, but steadily until the reckoning arrives in a form you didn't choose and at a time you didn't plan. None of those dimensions have a filing deadline. The external system forces the reckoning, which means most people never run the audit until the gap produces a system loud enough to demand attention. You cannot close a gap you haven't measured. You cannot address a restriction you haven't named. The IRS figured that out. They just limited the audit to one dimension. The free synovial space diagnostic at h2pcollective.com gives you an honest snapshot of where you are across all 8 dimensions of your life. But a snapshot on its own is just data. What turns it into a roadmap is the conversation, your goals, your results, and the insight Liz and I bring to both. That's where we find the one change that creates movement everywhere else. Take your goal, start with the diagnostic. That's the first step. Tax day comes once a year, but the gap between what you intended and what you actually built in every dimension of your life compounds every day the audit doesn't happen. File your return, then run the real one. Enjoy the ham.